Titan goes, so make sure Tom keeps his shirt on. And I was like, no.
He wishes.
No,
he wishes he could contain this.
All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Are We Where Yet podcast. I'm your host, Johnny. And today we got a sponsor, which is cool.
What?
Right? What? Yay. Do I have the yay?
Do you have a klaxon?
No, that's
Nah, that's not a klaxon.
Hold on. Anyway, it's one of those buttons.
Right.
That would have worked. Shut up.
Should I make my own klaxon?
What's it? Could you?
There we go.
Yeah, right. So today's sponsor is Made West. This is actually like his old line.
Okay.
But this is for my son. And shout out to Made West. You can find them on Instagram. They do handcrafted leather wallets, billfolds, all made 100% here in Yuma, Arizona.
Look at that dope beanie.
And they got the beanie. Right? So shout out to Made West. You can find them on Instagram. It's _Made West _
Okay.
So you got to do the underscore coming in.
Right.
Underscore going out.
Okay.
On Instagram.
So it's an underscore sandwich with Made West in the middle.
Can we redo this all over again? Because I feel like I didn't.
Man, we should make a lot of money on
Exactly.
this.
So anyway, I'm going to have the link in the description to shout out to Made West. Really appreciate them for sponsoring this episode. And the man across from me that's talking, right, is Thomas Fernandez.
Well, what's going on, everybody?
Thomas Fernandez, also known as BDS The Fresh. Do you go by that anymore?
I haven't gone for it in a long time because I haven't really done music in a minute, but people still call me that, like when I see people in the streets, if you will.
Yeah, and then the hood.
In the hood.
Yeah.
Right.
So, but since the music's kind of taken the back seat, not really.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember us having a conversation a long time ago. We talked about, God, I can't remember the term where you basically you are using certain things as like a crutch.
Give me another term.
God. Okay.
Okay. So maybe something you're trying to like go off of.
Yeah, basically, like I had created BDS The Fresh to be the person I thought I wanted myself to
persona.
Be, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I can't remember the term because we talked about this at length like 2 years ago, and I wanted to kill it. So I was just like, no, it's time for me to stop hiding behind this persona that I made. That was, BDS The Fresh that everybody knew me by. And, after, soul searching for a while, I just kind of learned like, hey, this is something I'm hiding behind. As opposed to actually being my authentic self, which is Thomas Fernandez. I've been BDS The Fresh for, 20 years. At this point.
20 years. Yeah.
Right. And I was like, you know what? It's time for that individual to die and for Tom Fernandez to actually be, or Thomas Fernandez or Thomas Fernandez, whatever you call, whatever my mom calls me that week, to be the actual artist and not necessarily this, persona that I created.
Gotcha. Yeah, get a little bit closer to the mic or kind of, there you go. That sexy voice. Right? You got that voice, man. Right? Yeah. And anyway, so we'll get into BDS The Fresh came from how we originally met is through hip hop.
Exactly.
It's through hip hop. And we talked a little bit about it 2 episodes ago when I had Mike Titan on.
Mike Titan.
Yeah.
Handsome devil.
Yeah, that handsome devil.
Right.
Who is also going past his persona of Mike Titan to Charles Escalante, the politician.
The politician, can you believe that?
The politician. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Out of all of us, he's elected to office.
Hey, and that makes sense to me because Charles was always one of the most sensitive and loving people. And he was always
big teddy bear.
Yeah, big teddy bear. He was always the one guy that you could always be like, come with your problems or actually speak about some real ish with him. You know what I'm saying? So that makes sense that he'd be in a position that actually tries to help the people around him because that's who he's always been.
And he's doing great.
Yeah, man. I'm really proud of that guy. I see him around and, he wears shirts now,
That's huge.
Yeah. He has clothes in public. I mean.
Yeah, and his clothing does not include spikes.
I know, right? Like I saw him at the YumaCon not too long ago, and I gave him a hug, and I wasn't injured afterward. Like I didn't walk away with like a feather boa in my mouth after I gently kissed him on the neck when we said goodbye.
Yeah, he loved that boa.
Yeah, man, it's progression.
He loved that boa. But anyway, so we talked about it a little bit with him.
Right.
I think originally the way I met you at first was the battle, the Easter Jam battle.
I remember you guys talking about on the show. I was like,
yeah,
I remember that battle.
That's the first. And because I just remember writing down the names of this battle, like everybody that entered. You got entered through the radio station,
right,
through Z93.
I had just moved back from. I was going to U of A. I was living in Tucson for a while, and I had just moved back from Yuma because that's all I did when I was up in college. Is It was literally like the Wild Wild West. I would just, meet somebody. I'd hear the party going down. There was a DJ. I would go there and just grab the mic and battle whoever's there. That's all I did for like 2-3 years in Tucson. So that's kind of how I built my name out there, just walking, going from battle to battle. Like at the time I worked for the college radio station for the hip hop section. So then, I kind of met like all A&R people out there and just kind of, a lot of people that were like famous at the time, like Chris Rock and DMX, Big Pun and stuff like that, just working through that part of the station. And so like I, was an MC, so we'd always like have freestyle battles of like, the shows we did and stuff. And when I got kicked out of college, I just kind of like started a company with a bunch of my friends out there called Too Strong Entertainment. And we just did like, hip hop news and like music promotion. We did nightclubs and stuff like that. And I would just go to all these parties and there'd always be one or two MCs, spitting in the crowd. So I would just focus on that and kind of just spent like 2 years every day going to a different like get together and just, battling whoever I could find.
Yeah. So then that was the radio station. I think I went with you one day later on.
Yeah.
Like we went back and revisited that whole.
Yeah, it was like years later. But yeah, I remember when you came back, the rules were you had to call into the radio station, and then I think with Beaks and L-Dog, right?
Yeah.
Back in that day, yeah.
So yeah, that was the how to get into that battle back then. And I could never get on because I was always working.
Yeah, I remember you telling me the story about when you had to like spit for them in like the drive-through line, right?
Drive-through at McDonald's to get into this battle because the dude pulled up in a nice like Cadillac or something.
Right.
And I don't remember even how the conversation got started. Like why I'm going to rap for this guy while I have like these, hello, would you like fries with that?
Welcome to Yak in the Box.
Yeah. And anyway, I ended up spitting for him. And that's how I got into the battle.
Right.
But what I was doing before that was writing down everybody's name. And so your name was the part of the ones that won.
Right.
And so I had a disc for everybody in the battle.
And I remember when we got to the battle, like, 'cause the whole time I'd been preparing, like, up until the actual show, right? So we get to the show, and I drew the unfortunate card of being the first person to go on.
Yeah.
So I was the first. And then, like, behind the scenes, they were just like, okay, we're not going to battle after all. We're just going to have people go out there and spit a 16 and then let the crowd choose on who they want, who progresses or whatever. So I had the first person to go. So I had nobody to battle. So you and me went up on stage first. And so they were like, hey, just don't battle each other, just spit a 16. So I went on first, spitting a 16. I was like, all right, I'm just going to spit this and, see how it goes. But then you actually came at me with a battle. I was like, damn it, I was stupid. I should have just came at the dude.
Because I was a battle rapper.
Right.
That's all I knew how to do.
And it was something that was so smart. And I looked, and I actually kept that lesson. I was like, you know what? That was really, really smart what he did. And I need to not be unprepared like that ever again.
Yeah. So
Right.
But the crazy thing is that later on, after meeting you and talking, I think we ended up linking up later as like back when I was doing the church thing, and I met at like an outreach in Hastings parking lot or something like that. That we.
I think it was a Big Curb Mall at the time.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
and then I remember meeting you, and I'm like, you're a teddy bear too, man.
I try to be.
You know what I mean? Like you're just a sweet guy, and I'm like, oh man, he said those horrible things about this great guy.
But that's what battle rap is, though. At the time, like I didn't take any offense to it. And if anything, it's like, man, that guy was way smarter than me at that moment. I should have done what he did, and it's my own fault for losing because I wasn't smart about it. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, man, but I remember that it was a few months later. And I was with the girl I was dating at the time, and there was like a stage for some reason set up at like the Big Curb. I think you said it was an outreach thing.
Yeah.
At the Big Curb Mall.
Yep.
And we just pulled up there because I was taking her shopping or something, and all of a sudden I saw you guys there. I'm like, hey, hold my shit. We're going to go over there real quick. And I saw you guys on stage. I was like, all right, let's come to the car, let's spit.
Yeah, that was that. And I remember that girl. She was crazy.
Oh yeah, she was really crazy.
She was a crazy girl, right?
Right, but she had my back. She was hyping me up. She's like, "Yeah, that's my man."
Yeah. That was super cool.
Yeah, that was super cool of her.
And that was the first time we kind of really got to chop it up.
Right. I think it was you. I want to say Rondell was there.
Yeah.
And then obviously CJ was there.
Yeah. So no, CJ wasn't there at that one.
No, you're right. Yeah, this before he.
Yeah, that was before. Like CJ took a little while before, and everybody were talking about CJ Citizen Name. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, brother.
Yeah. It took a little while before he ended up, because he was just like a DJ, and me and Rondell would go to his house and he'd spin records, and me and Rondell would just rap over these records. And CJ was he was younger, like a couple years younger.
Yeah.
And he just thought it was cool. Like this big black guy that just got out of prison is in his house rapping. So he's like, oh, I'm real hip hop.
Little did we know.
Yeah. Man. Yeah. He's in prison.
Yeah. Rightfully so. Sorry to say it, but rightfully so.
Yeah. He's in prison. Dude, I worked with Rondell for a long time, but we went on a lot of trips together out of town. I had no idea.
How could you? You know what I'm saying? Like, you weren't his MO.
Yeah, no idea. But anyway, that's how we linked up. And then we ended up being in a couple different crews together first, Battlestar.
Oh, man, Battlestar. Do you remember the Battlestar roll call sheet we had?
You got to remind me, man.
Okay, so for those who don't know, Battlestar was basically like Arizona's version of like if Wu-Tang Clan met like Rocksteady crew. Yeah. So our whole MO was like, all right, we're going to get every MC, every DJ, every B-boy, every grab hit, anybody who's down with hip-hop, and we're going to form one massive crew. And our whole idea was just like dominance takeover. Like we didn't want anybody to do a show without it being affiliated with Battlestar, or anybody, making music or a record that wasn't affiliated with it, you know what I'm saying? And I remember we started, and we had like 40 people at first.
It was
ridiculous. We had an actual sheet of paper with everybody's name and contact info, and it was like a double sheet of paper, like normal spacing, just like all these heads, just like, and what they did, like, oh, blah, 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 MC, blah, 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 DJ, and then so we knew who did what, you know what I'm saying?
If you did something, we wanted you in. It was the collective, and I think originally Kane was the one that kind of spearheaded that whole thing. Kane from Maintain and 6D, he was the one that kind of spearheaded because he had access to a studio,
right, with
Mike Miho. Rest in peace. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know where he's at.
I don't know. I don't really care, but
he's probably not dead.
No.
Anyway, so that was Kane that kind of spearheaded that.
Yeah, man. I remember it was Kane. It was us. You guys. It was. God, remember Colorado Chris?
See, I'm faint. This
is how we want to get people. Colorado Chris was a homeless MC that lived on the river that we just randomly met somewhere. And just threw him in the crew and like had his name on the list. Didn't have a phone because he was homeless. I had no idea we were going to get rid of this guy.
Rondell met him.
That's what it was.
Rondell met him.
The weirdest people through Rondell.
Yeah, Rondell brought Colorado Chris in. Yeah, I remember now.
Yeah.
And he ended up started to go to church with us.
Yeah,
as a Rondell.
Right.
And then we did a thing like an outreach. In San Diego, because our church would send us over, and me and Rondell would go rap anywhere. And I'm like, dude, I get to rap, and they send me. So cool.
Yeah.
We took him to San Diego. In this church van, he took off. In San Diego.
And then nobody ever saw Colorado Chris again.
We never saw him again.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
It's like people are like, "Where's Chris at?" Like, I don't know.
Who knows, man?
I have no idea. He went back into the great unknown,
right,
to which he came from.
Hey, I bet I'm hoping Colorado Chris somewhere just hit the lotto. He's living on a beach somewhere, you know what I'm saying? That's what I hope.
That's nice thoughts for Colorado Chris.
I hope so, because he wasn't a bad dude.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't a bad dude at all. He had some bad luck and
right.
Ended up homeless, but it was deep. It was pretty deep, and
it was a pretty deep crew.
And
almost too deep, you would say.
It was too deep.
Yeah, it was way too deep.
It was too deep.
Yeah.
But, we ended up whittling it down to Cerebral Arts.
Right.
That's when it kind of got more refined, and kind of Kane went his own way with Maintain, and a lot of people kind of
they were still down with it. I think it's when Cerebral Arts kind of started coming to an end is when he kind of branched off, and
when Battlestar coming to an end.
I know, because I remember Kane and them were originally part of Cerebral Arts at the very beginning.
Okay.
Because I remember the original three, I forgot, what do we call the people that paid, like, finance a place? Was it like principals or something like that? I can't remember. Because originally it was the four of us. It was me, him, Charles, and Mike Miho were the four people that, paid for the operation.
Paid for the studio.
Right. And then everybody else was just like, down with it or whatever. And so Kane was one of the original ones. And I want to say Kane probably a little more forethought than we did. I remember he started, saying like, we can't really trust Mike Miho, blah, blah, blah. And then he bounced out and took, his homies with him. And then we all stood behind kind of like, no, you're wrong, blah, blah, blah. But then he ended up being right. So,
yeah.
Shout out to Kane for seeing what we couldn't see.
Yeah, but Cerebral Arts ended up kind of transforming into I guess the one more steady one that had some longevity.
Right.
Yeah, that was me, you, Mike Titan.
Right. Tension.
Fausto came along.
Then we had Romero.
Yeah,
Divine Wind. Shout outs to Red Moon.
Yeah, Red Moon right over here next to us over here at the Linwood Co-op.
Right.
Which him, I saw him at one of the first big shows that Walter put on.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he was rapping with like Plan B back then. And
This is pre-open air days?
Pre-open air days, right. Yeah. And he kind of really like shocked me. I'm like, dude, we need to get him in the crew.
Yeah.
Like that dude is dope.
Right? Then we have Miker.
Yeah, Miker too. Yeah, yeah. And then, anyway, we could go on and on forever. Let's not bore everybody. So that's a little bit of our backstory. You originally, we were talking about, made beats when I met you on Sony PlayStation.
Right, right. So I've always been what you call a poorsman. So I never really had money for equipment or anything like that. I always liked emceeing since I was like 12. So I always did it, but I always, back in, and now I'm going to age myself here, but this is back in like the late 80s, early 90s when I started doing music. And I don't know, hopefully the people out there were here at the same time, but Yuma at the time was a very different place. There was pre-internet, so you didn't have any access to anything outside of what you see locally, and then you had TV. So we didn't have cable till I was like around 12ish, and that's when I finally, got cable, and then along with the cable came MTV. And then along with that came Yo MTV Raps. So I was up late one night, and they only played on Saturdays and Fridays, I think like at midnight or something like that. It's the only time you could watch it. And I'd always loved hip hop, but only what I got access to here. So I had an older cousin, Chris, who was a b-boy, but he was also a cholo. So I only heard like cholo rap, you know what I'm saying? So if those who don't know, cholo rap is just, Mexican gangsters taking, samples from the 70s and 60s and just making it cholo rap, no better explanation than that. So then I was watching Yo MTV Raps, and it changed my life because it was on late one night, and I heard Pete Rock and CL Smooth, They Reminisce Over You. And that was the first time I'd ever heard something outside of cholo rap that was actually saying something.
That got you.
That got me. So the second I heard it, I'm like, holy crap, there's more out there than what the hell I've been watching. So then I religiously watched Yo MTV Raps. One of the things that got me into it before Yo MTV Raps was Breakin'. I don't know if anybody remembers the movie.
Love it.
Yeah, so Breakin's a classic. So back in the 80s and 90s, for those of y'all who are much younger than I am, they had video stores where they had these old clamshells of like, the big VHS boxes or whatever. And I remember I saw Breakin', didn't know what it was, but it just looked cool as hell. So I got my mom to get it for me and then watched it. And then Turbo, Ozone, Special K, like all that just blew my mind. I'm like, holy crap, what the hell is this? And that's when I started trying to find as much hip hop as I could. And then I came across Yo MTV Raps, and then that was it. It was a lock. I would stay up late at night and just, watch it. But my mom was old school, so I couldn't stay up late. So I had to sneak out of my room and go turn on the TV, but then turn it to its lowest volume so nobody could hear it but me. So I had to literally sit there and press my ear up against the TV so I can hear what's going on, and then try to set an angle where I could see what's going on too, because obviously it was a music video. But man, it just changed me. And like, that's when I realized like, oh man, this is what I want to do. I want to be something like an artist like this, and, except I didn't think I could rap. I didn't think I could, be an MC or anything
really?
like that. Yeah. So then my original plan was like, I want to be a radio DJ. Like I want to be a DJ, and I want to, talk to people and blah, blah, blah. And that's all I knew. I didn't know there was.
So not just a regular DJ, a radio DJ.
I want to be a radio DJ. And I was like, maybe that's where I can be a radio DJ. I can meet these people and be involved somehow. So I told my mom, like, I want to be a radio DJ. She's like, that's stupid. She's like, and back in the day, I was like,
right? Because how are you going to do it?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's like some forethought from
not
your
only
mom.
that, but then at the same time, like my parents grew up poor Mexicans, so like Mexicans aren't DJs. What are you talking about? Name one Mexican radio DJ. And I'm just like, I'll be the first. And they're just like, no, you won't. That's stupid.
Yeah. So
then I'm like, all right. So you have to understand, this is parenting back in the 80s and 90s. Like, you weren't told that you can do stuff. You're like, hey, you can't do that. Why don't you just get a regular job, or why don't you go to school, be a doctor or a lawyer, something like that, And so I was like, at the time I was very rebellious. Someone was like, all right, I'm going to do that now. Watch me. Because you said I couldn't, That's kind of my mindset. And so, but then I started thinking about it, and I was like, I don't want to be a radio DJ. Like, I'm going to make music, but I had no idea what that entailed. So then I was like, well, I don't know how to make the music. There's nobody here that does it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was pretty much by myself. Just, me, 13-year-old kid in a house, just watching as much MTV Raps as I could and just writing down my notebook like these really whack, juvenile grade school rhymes.
Because that's how you start.
Exactly. That's how you start. Like,
that's
you start
how
by imitating. You start imitating what you see. So I saw Pete Rock, CL Smooth. I wanted to be CL Smooth. So I literally recorded that one song. That's all I had. I had a VHS tape that I just recorded that one video on, and I watched it till the tape broke. And I tried to learn all of his rhymes and delivery and all of that, and I was whack. I was horrible. But it was something that I thought I was great at because I had nobody else to bounce it off of.
And you know that there's a beauty in that, I think.
Exactly.
That you thought you were great and then you became great.
And that's what I hoped I was.
No, because
I hoped I was great, but at the same time, I know for a fact that I wasn't,
But you became that. You ended up, because I remember even when we first started the crew, you were the most polished on the mic in the studio. You were the, like, you had the natural voice. You were able to get in there and do the studio, and you just had this the cadence. You're gonna die.
For our audio listeners, I drank some water at the wrong time.
Yeah. But anyway, you had this. They had the cadence, and you were able to do things that it was like, man, I'm never going to be able to catch up to him. Seriously, that's what I thought.
Well, I appreciate that, man. And I think a lot of that just stemmed from that I had no friends. So I was one of those things where I watched an interview one time where they had DJ Red Alert. And he said that somebody one time came to him for advice on, how to be the best. And he said, just for 2 years, give up everything. No friends, no women, no liquor, no drugs, and just do that one thing for 2 years. And I never saw that interview until I was older, but that was kind of my mindset at the time. It's like, well, I don't have any friends. I don't really have any distractions. So I'm going to throw myself all into this something,
So that's how you became good at rapping on the mic and in beats.
Yeah, I would this before there were beats. Because I had no equipment at the time. So all until the time I started high school, it was just me in my room just spitting by myself. And then I went to high school and shout out to the homie Blessed Child. Saw my homeboy Brandon Williams. And at the time, like, we weren't friends. We didn't know each other. I think it was like 14, 15 when you started high school back then. And I was also a huge nerd that nobody liked. So I didn't have any friends like going there. Like, I literally had one friend who was my cousin. He went to Yuma High. I went to Cibola, So when I went there, like, I knew nobody. And I think on my first week of school, I just saw Brandon out there just rapping on the mic. And I don't know if anyone went to Cibola, but back in the day when they had there was a space right in front of like the library. And what they would do is they would sometimes just put music out there and have somebody play music. And
I remember, I went to Kofa.
Okay.
But I remember hearing about that at Cibola, like, damn, those lucky sons of bitches.
Right. And so I'm like, oh, this is cool. There's music, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I just saw Brandon, get on the mic and start rapping, just plugged in the mic. I think he brought it from home and just plugged it into the PA board and just started rapping without anybody's permission or whatever. And I was like, man, that's the coolest shit I've ever seen. You know what I'm saying? So I remember he did it a few times, and probably about the third time I saw him do it, I actually went up to him and was like, hey, man, that's really cool. I rap too, blah, blah, blah. And so I went to his house afterward. And it was funny because we were kids and his mom wouldn't let us, play any music that had curse words or whatever. We had to keep the door open. And we just sat there and just tried to spit verses without cursing at one another because mom was right there watching what we were doing. And so that's where, I started, go bouncing off somebody. Exactly. Because I think, you can do it in your house so much. But eventually, if you're going to do any type of art, you have to bounce it off the public.
It has to have that friction.
Exactly. You need to go either, hang out with other artists or, present yourself in the public for, open and honest criticism. And that's what that was. It was me and him just bouncing off one another and kind of, oh, that sucks. You shouldn't do that. Or, hey, that's pretty dope. I like what you said that, But it was just two artists being honest with one another. And we had never had that. So then it started us just doing that whenever they have the music. He would just find us, plug in a mic and just start rapping or whatever. And then we met another girl named Maria, who is, really way more popular because me and Brandon were still nerds that nobody liked, but at least we had each other, right?
Okay.
And then so we met Maria, who's much more popular than us, but also rap. So then the three of us started doing it together, and we formed a group called Trilogy. And
I remember Trilogy.
Yeah, man. Yeah, this is old school. So we formed the group Trilogy, and then we would just we would do talent shows and just stuff like that. And then I think it was in my junior year, if I'm not mistaken. This kid comes up to me, a little skinny white kid. And what we would do is we didn't have equipment, so we would just find tape instrumentals. So you'd go back in the day, you'd buy a single tape and it'd have the song.
Yeah, and then the instrumental on the
so
B-side.
We would just, so we'd flip over the B-side and we'd play the instrumental, and then we'd just be us rapping over the instrumental and somehow recording that through like a karaoke machine. And so that's all we had. So we did that, and then we would just hang out, slang, basically what they call mixtapes now, just like us, over other people's beats, just hanging out to people to like, hey, listen to our music, And so it was, this kid hands me his tape. And what it is our song that we recorded, and then there was like a 30-second break at the end, and he recorded his verse at the end of that 30-second break.
Shut up.
Yeah. So then he hands me this, and I'm like offended. I'm like, dude, I'm gonna kick your fucking ass. Like, what the hell are you doing? And so that was tension. So that dude was Scott. And for those of you who don't know, Scott is now my partner, like the other half of Earthborn that I did music with for
That's
but that's how
Tension was born.
That's how Tension was born. I was going to fight Tension in school because he did that to my mixtape.
Wow.
And we weren't cool for like a good year or something. Then eventually, I think I forgot why I was mad at him, and we just started being cool. And so I graduated. And then when I graduated, I went to U of A because I didn't want to go to college. I didn't want to get a higher education. I just wanted to get out of my house and out of Yuma. So then that was my ticket. So I got, accepted there. I went there. And so when I got there, I wasn't really interested in going to school at all. Like, I have classes. Like, first time in my life I've ever really had freedom. So I just kicked off and partied like every day. Like to the point where, I think I would wake up at like 3:00 in the afternoon and then, call up somebody I met, and then we would just go party all night and then fall asleep at like 1:00 in the morning.
Wow.
Yeah. So we did that pretty much for a year. And that's when I joined the, what they call camp radio, which I don't know if it still is a thing, but that was like the U of A's college radio station. So then, it would broadcast over the campus and like in certain parts of Tucson. So I got there and they didn't have a hip hop department. It was just rock music at the time. So then I was like, hey, I'm going to start a hip hop, chapter there. And so there was already a guy there by the name of Adley, who is my homie. Shout out to Adley. So we and him started the hip hop portion of the camp thing. So then we got some money. We bought records. We would actually call A&Rs from different labels and like introduce ourselves, and they would send us whatever they were trying to promote at the time. And so that's where I started like kind of learning the business side of it.
Wow. Okay.
So we did that, and then our job was to bring in shows. So then like when they had Wyclef was producing his like solo album, or his first solo album after he did the thing with the Fugees. We'd like, hey, call us in our I'm like, hey, are you going to come through Arizona? If you do, blah blah blah. So we get like shows and tickets and stuff, and like kind of like met the world at that point.
So you met a lot of these artists.
Yeah. So I met a lot of these artists, and then like
who'd you meet? Like, did you really meet Big Pun like you said earlier?
Yeah, we were actually saw him at the last show he did, like in Tucson, back when before he died, because he was so big that he couldn't stand on stage.
I remember that.
So
him at the
he
end,
just like sitting in a chair, and then like all the Terror Squad, they're just like spitting all those verses because he couldn't spit. Met Chris Rock, but just a bunch of people, man, and like a bunch of like underground artists that I'd always click better with just because they weren't famous, so they just want to hang out and just chop up hip hop, So I did that for about a year, because then I got kicked out of school and I couldn't do it anymore. So then I got kicked out because obviously never went to class.
Yeah, no class, no grades.
No class, no grades. Like, what are you doing here, man? So I got kicked out then, and then I was kind of homeless for about 2 years. So I just bounced around Tucson, slept on people's couches, in parks or whatever, wherever I could find. And but I still hung out with the same people that I built this, community with. So I still had friends, and like we decided to build our own company. So we started what I don't think it's still a thing, but at the time it was Too Strong Entertainment, where what we would do is we would promote clubs. So then we, they'd hire us to do their flyers and things like that. And we would DJ clubs and things like that at night. We would, write, we had a newsletter called Too Strong and Popping, where we just hand that out, make mixtapes as like prizes and things like that. And then eventually we built our own studio. So one of the homies there, Ryan, that was like wanted to get in production, he, was pretty well off. And so he bought a bunch of equipment. And the first thing he bought was an MPC. So he bought an MPC. And then he was like, hey, man, let's learn to make beats. I'm like, all right. So we sat there and we just learned it. Like, figured out how to make beats on the MPC. And so that's how I started the production portion. So we did that for about 2 years. And then, I was like, hey, man, I'm tired of the, I'm not so much tired of the life we live, but I was tired of, being bummy, having no money, like just being dirty and homeless, basically. So then I moved back here to Yuma. And then the week I moved back is when they had the contest you were talking about, Beaks and L-Dog. So I called, and then that's, what brought us to that.
That's how history became history.
Right, exactly.
Ah, gotcha.
So then I was like, all right, well now there's, when I lived here, there was only like 3 people I knew that did hip hop, and they were all gone by that point. So I was like, all right, well, cool. There's more people here that do it now. So then I was like, all right, well, I still want to make beats, because I loved starting to do that in Tucson, but I never really got to go anywhere with it. So then I was like, all right, well, I had no money, nothing, no equipment or anything like that. There weren't any stores here where I could buy that equipment. So it was either, I'm going to shave, because I think at the time, like an MPC was like $1,500, something like that.
Yeah, about $1,500. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I was walking around the mall one day, and I was in Toys R Us. And, wait, was it Toys R Us? Yeah, I think Toys R Us was the one on 32nd, right?
Yeah, you're talking about KB's.
KB's, there you go. I was in KB's store, and that's the one that was in the mall. And I was walked by the video game section. I never really played video games, but then I saw a game there that was called MTV Music Generator. And so I'm like, oh, this looks this name, what the hell is this? MTV Has a Game or whatever. And then I saw just the word sample on it. So I turned it over and I read, and the game would allow you to sample like music, like a little 10-second sample, and then you can make beats with that. And so I was like, oh shit, like I need to do this. So I literally that day bought that, and I bought a PlayStation 3, and because it was like $300. So I was like, I can't swing $1,500, but I can swing $300 for the PlayStation. Yeah, PlayStation 3 at the time.
Are you sure?
PlayStation 2.
Yeah, there's no way it was
it was PlayStation 2. So at that time, I think it was even cheaper. I think it was like around $200. So I bought that and took it home and just learned it. And it's basically like any sequencing program, whether you use like Cubase or anything, the concept's still the same. Like you have the screen, the little blocks, you place things like there, and you kind of sequence out your beat. And I did that. And so that's when we started. When we started the Battlestar thing, that's what I had to make beats on.
And again, I remember your beats sounded the best.
No, thank you, man.
Seriously, they were the best. Like I came in with Citizen Aim, and we were barely, or he was barely learning on using that program Acid Pro or something like that. That was the program he used to make beats, and he was just learning. It didn't have like a quantizer on there, so just for him to learn how to make beats on beat was like a huge challenge.
Man, I remember the original beat CD he gave me.
Yeah, so like his original beats weren't like, and it was like I'd tell him like, CJ, there's something up with these. Like he's like,
just every beat was slightly off.
Yeah, he was like, this is art, man. This is art. Take it how it is.
Right.
If you can't rap to this, you can't rap. And I mean, he would tell me that, and I'm like,
right. That's because he could rap on anything, though.
He could do anything. Man. But I'm like, yeah, but I don't think so. He's like, Miker could do it.
And Miker could, man. Miker was dope.
And Miker could do it. And it's like, I couldn't do it. But thank God, through a little bit of coaxing, and Odd Thomas, shout out to Odd Thomas, kind of showed him how to put everything on beat. And I'm so grateful for that, because he ended up producing some of the greatest beats in the whole crew.
Oh, dude. Classics, man.
Yeah, that dude... that Skywalker song. Oh my goodness.
Man. To this day, I'm so sad that there's no like official release for Skywalker. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But hey, who knows?
Yeah,
there is a future.
I don't know if anybody has that beat.
I don't think we have the beat. I think we have the recorded song.
Yeah, the beat. That's somewhere.
Yeah.
But that'd be nice to give that its proper due one day. Which is me, you, Mike Titan.
Yep.
And Citizen Aim. Yeah. And so anyway, you had these good beats that were able to kind of propel us to another level because the quality of them. And then I remember finding out that you did them on a PlayStation. Like, I'm like, no way.
Yeah, man. Yeah, because
that's not a thing.
Because I was always of the mindset, like I always grew up poor. So anything you made from what you had in front of you. You know what I'm saying? So then that was always the, whether it was art or it was music or whatever, it was just always like, okay, you're not going to have money to get the top of line stuff. So what do you use to make, your music? Like if you look at anybody that's worth their salt, like Fela Kuti, you have this guy in South Africa who, had no money for instruments, but somehow made an 88-person band that, made some phenomenal music. You know what I'm saying? Like if it's in you, you're going to do it.
Yeah, because that's the heart of creativity, isn't it?
Exactly.
Is that like, okay, I have this, and this.
Yeah.
Now, the thing inside of me is bigger than this, and this.
Right.
And like, how do I get that to be manifest in this thing we call reality?
And that's one thing that most artists can relate to that I think people that aren't artists can't really do the same, where, you have this thing inside of you that's bigger than you. It's fighting its way to get out of you, and you have no choice but to do it. But,
Because then if you don't, you feel depressed.
Exactly.
You feel like
you get sad.
You get sad and like...
You feel bad about yourself. You start, that starts negatively affecting all your relationships with everybody around you. That's because you have this thing inside of you that the universe is giving you that you need to get out, and you're not doing it.
Yeah, so if Tom has to grab a PlayStation and MTV music generator to make it happen,
that's what I did. Exactly, because that's what you have to do if you're an artist. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't care if you're a painter, musician, sculptor, whatever it is. Like, you're going to make art out of whatever you have in front of you because that's what you are. You're an artist. Whether, you get paid for it or not, that has no bearing on what you do.
And you are a true artist because... we can go into a lot of the history so we've done music for quite a while. You put out a Lechuga Frunk and a few albums with Reborn.
Right.
But you're more than just hip hop because these comic books that I have right here are your comic books.
Yeah. So
is that on camera there at all, Luis? Oh, cool. He said yes.
Cool.
And then this little cool thing that you did.
Yep, did it for our brother Says Name for his Beluga song.
No, Fausto.
Oh, Fausto.
Yeah.
My bad.
This is
Name's our brother too, but
yeah. This was, we're all related.
Literally. For those who don't know, we've all been in the same family, literally.
Yes, literally. It's which I have a creative family.
Yeah.
Very creative. Everybody, the extensions, everybody is just like this cool family. But anyway, you go beyond and you have a comic book.
Yes, sir.
You have I love telling people. Oh, and also everybody that's listening and sees, you did the logo for the podcast.
Oh yeah, that's right. I did your logo for Are We Where Yet?
Yeah. So like for this podcast, if you go online, if you go on Facebook, he did all the artwork, and I just gave him an idea. It's like, hey, I want this, and this, and then he turned around and gave me a beautiful landscape, and I appreciate that.
Welcome, sir. Welcome. Thank you for having me do it.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to talk a little bit about a comic book now. Okay, because what?
So one of the things that the very first thing I ever did artistically was I drew.
And so that was like the first sign of your creativity.
Right. So one of the first memories I had when I was 3 is me sitting there watching Scooby-Doo, trying to just draw what I could see on the paper. And obviously it wasn't good.
Back to like when you first started rapping, it wasn't good.
It wasn't good,
but it was something.
Right. Whenever you start anything, you're not good at what you start at. So when I started drawing, it was just to do it, And then as I grew older, I would get in trouble in school all the time because basically I would be doing graffiti. Like I would be sitting at my desk and I'd run out of paper because I drew on everything. So now I would just start drawing on the desk I was sitting at, or I would draw on the wall I was sitting by or whatever. And like I would do it unconsciously just because I had to do it. And I would get in trouble all the time at school. They'd call my parents, say, look, he destroyed this table, blah, blah, blah. And then I would get, my ass whooped when I got home. But I wouldn't stop. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's just what was in me. Like I had to create something. So then I got older and I just started, drawing what I saw, drawing cartoons and just basically something I would just do unconsciously sometimes, where I would just sit there with a pen and paper and just sit there for hours and just draw. Not because I wanted to make something, just because I wanted to create something, if that makes any sense. So that I did that and just kept at it. And then kind of music was my passion at the time. So I did that, but then I still always drew at the same time. Like if you remember back in the day, I'd always have, for those who don't know, graffiti artists would always have black books.
Yeah, you had your black book.
So my black book always there, that I'd be sitting there and I'd put a piece up and then like somebody would add to that or like, go hit up a wall or something, just what you did if you were an artist, So I did that, and just always did it. Like it was always just me just making it to make it. Because I was in my mind, I was like, okay, I'm a hip hop artist, I'm a rapper. There's something I do on the side. And so when I, stopped doing music, I always, painted, always drew and stuff. And it was always something that I did just to do. I never thought of it getting beyond that point. One of the things I liked to do when I was a kid, like one of my first nerdy endeavors was comic book collecting. So, because again, back in the early 80s, 90s in Arizona, it wasn't cool to collect comics back then. It wasn't cool to be a nerd. It wasn't cool to play video games. Here you were either a farmer or you were a gangster. Anything other than that got your ass kicked.
Yeah.
Right. So then that's what I did. Like I was an outsider in every sense of the word. Like I like everything that wasn't popular. And I was like, well, I'm not going to be a gangster. I'm not, not cut out for that. And I really don't like farming. So it's just I'm just going to be the outcast, So then I liked video games. I liked, comic books. And so one of the first things I ever loved doing was just buying comics. So I would sit there and just read them, when I was a kid and just, kind of learn everything I could about it. And then just like loving the art. And then I would sit there and look at the art and just stare at it sometimes for hours, not even reading the book, but just looking at the panels.
Something about the art spoke to you.
Right. Something spoke to me. And at the same time, like, it's a lot of it, if you look back, a lot of it's hero fulfillment, like wish fulfillment. If you're the kid who nobody likes and you're the nerd and outcast, well, there's Peter Parker who nobody likes as well. And he just happens to be a hero,
And that Peter Parker was like, okay, wait a minute. Maybe that's me.
Right. Exactly. And if you look at any character worth his salt, other than like Superman, because like, oh, I'm just going to be the best. And that never really resonated with me. But you look at the underdog, you look at like a Peter Parker or even a Batman. Even though he's a rich billionaire and had all the advantages of the world, there was something else inside of him. You know what I'm saying? He was a human who was just the best at being what he was. And that was his real superpower. You know what I'm saying? He didn't necessarily need to, be from another planet or get bit by a radioactive spider, and all that resonated with me. So then I just always did this, and probably right in the middle of like my quote unquote hip hop career, I just came up with an idea, and I was like, you know what? I read a million comics. I'm gonna see what it's like to just write one. I just started thinking of an idea, and that's when I came up with a Lumberjack Nun. And I was like, I thought in my head, I was like, what's something stupid that's a ridiculous idea? I was like, oh, what about a nun with an axe. I was like, oh, that's ridiculous. Nuns don't, have axes. And so I just kind of made that the base and kind of built off from there.
So when was this? What year
This must have been 2002, 3?
2002.
Yeah.
Lumberjack nun comes into your brain.
Right.
You're like, this is ridiculous. I'm going with it.
Yeah, and it wasn't even like a serious thing. It was like, this would be stupid. It was me and a friend sitting there talking about just dumb ideas, right? And I was like, oh, what about a nun that fights, monsters with an axe? And I was like, oh, that's stupid, So then,
okay, yeah, right.
I was like, yeah, that is stupid. So then we just started bouncing ideas off one another, like, oh, what if this happens, or what if this happened, or he started coming with his own dumb ideas or whatever. And then it kind of stayed stagnant like that for a few years while I still tried to do the hip hop thing, and it was always in the back of my mind. And then, so a couple years after I came up with the idea, I was like, okay, well, let me just start thinking of what this would look like. So then I just started thinking like, okay, what would a lumberjack with an axe look like? And I just, spent, months just, doodling and coming up with different ideas to think how I wanted it to look. And then finally when I came up on look, I'm like, all right, that's a cool look. I'm saying? Then what would this story be? And kind of for the next 10 years, I started placing the story together. So then it was thinking what the characters would be, what the world like that would look like. And then, why? If you had this idea of okay,
why would a nun own?
Right, why would a nun have an axe?
Have an axe,
right?
Yeah,
and then why would she fight monsters? What are those monsters doing there? What is their motivation?
What universe is this?
Right. How did that come to happen? You know what I'm saying? A nun just didn't wake up one day and decide to fight a werewolf. You know what I'm saying? Why is a werewolf there? You know what I'm saying? How did she get in possession of that axe? So
you got to start formulating all these pieces,
right,
and to start constructing this universe that is whatever you want it to be.
Exactly. And then the kind of the good and bad part is again, I was jumping into something where I knew nothing and knew nobody that did it. When I started doing music, I didn't know anybody that did music. I didn't know guidance or no.
So this is a
mentor.
theme in your life.
Yeah.
This is a theme. I'm okay being by myself. I'm comfortable with myself. I think I could do this.
Right.
Even though I have no outside validation for it.
Exactly. And that's the thing, not to sound like a sad boy or anything, but I never had validation for anything I was doing because I didn't need that. It was either I'm going to do this because something I want to do. If I end up failing, then it's not like I'm in a worse place than I am now. The world isn't going to end it.
What you've got to lose.
Exactly. The worst thing I can do is make something nobody likes it. Hey, guess what? That's happened before. So, it's not the end of the world for me to make something that everybody hates. It's not going to stop me from doing it, but it's not going to break me. I think so many people are afraid of. And artists included, that's one of the main things we fear is when you make something creative, that's your child, that's your baby.
And you put it out there for the world to judge.
Exactly. And the world judges that thing you created is false. You're not a true artist. You know what I'm saying? Everything about this is horrible. They're oh, well, then I must be horrible.
I feel that when I release a new episode of my podcast.
Hey, same here. I have a podcast as well. And every time we put out an episode, I'm like, all right, well, this might be the one that ends it, you know what I'm saying? Or this might be the last thing I do. So, but even if it is.
You made my headphones fall off. That's hilarious.
Right. But even if worst case scenario, even if this is the episode that makes everybody hate your podcast and I'm single-handedly responsible for ruining your podcast career, that's the worst that can happen. If you can handle that, then do it. You know what I'm saying?
This is going to be the one that ends me, Tom.
Yeah.
This episode.
This will be the last episode of Are We Rare Yet?
Yeah. Because of you, I'm
Tom
over.
Fernandez to thank for the ruining of your career.
Yeah, I'm over. So you started off with a bad idea.
Right.
That bad idea turned into okay, what shape is this going to take? What is it going to look like? Why does this exist at all?
Exactly. Why can't I stop thinking about this? And I stopped and thought about anything that I liked. If you look at any movie, the premise for most movies are ridiculous. If you look at I grew up on kung fu movies, so let's take
I love them.
Yeah,
but they're ridiculous.
Right, they're utterly ridiculous. The whole concept is ridiculous. Let's look at what's that the most famous Bruce Lee one? Enter the Dragon.
Yeah.
All right, so you have Enter the Dragon. The premise is a guy is avenging his sister's murder by a bunch of would-be rapists who didn't actually rape her, but she killed herself so that way they wouldn't rape her.
Yeah.
And then now he has to avenge all that, but the only way he can avenge it is by somehow working for the American government that it has a secret kung fu department that stops terrorists from bringing heroin in with models.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty bad.
So when I looked at it for that lens, but that movie's awesome.
But it's a great, exactly, because you don't watch it for the story.
Right. And even the stories, it's not going to be Citizen Kane. Even Citizen Kane, you watch that, it's the greatest movie ever made, but you can pick apart any piece of art if you look at it objectively. And so then once I got over that home, like, hey, this idea is ridiculous. Like, yes, it is ridiculous, but that's okay. You can have something ridiculous, and it's still just as valid as anything else it puts out there, as long as you put the work into it.
Okay, I need to stop you real quick. And here's the thing: I just watched My Name Is Dolomite.
Oh, dude, that movie is awesome.
Have you saw it?
Yes. One of the best movies of the year, by the way.
It's a great movie.
Exactly. And you look at that, and that is every artist's journey.
But it's ridiculous.
It is, because if you look at it, have you ever seen the movie Dolomite?
No.
Okay. The movie's even worse in the way they make it look on the movie of making Dolomite. You know what I'm saying? So the movie's ridiculous.
I got so much inspiration after watching that.
Right.
Because I'm like, this guy just believed in himself.
Yeah, and nobody else did. Everybody along, if you watch a movie, everybody along was like, hey, this is the worst movie ever made. You're stupid for doing this.
Yeah.
You know?
He broke records.
Right. And that's because I think people can tell passion, right?
Yeah. That has to be, this passion, which is this energy had to be radiating because this guy turned $250 that he borrowed from his aunt to
one of the top grossing movie at the time.
Breaking records. And I'm like, this guy became a millionaire off of a bad idea, which was literally, let's put pimps and kung fu and kung fu girls and all these things.
And I'm going to act it myself. I have no acting premise, no kung fu premise.
No kung fu.
No directing premise. I had known nothing about this process. I'm going to make this movie out of sheer will.
And he did it.
He did it. And that's what's amazing. And that's, if you look at any type, like you can look at any bad movie. There's movies out there that are objectively bad, but people love them. And that's because I think they can tell like the passion and the power that went into making that. Like you can have $100 million budget and, all the things in the world, and you make Justice League, which is a horrible movie that nobody liked.
Or, well, I would say is the new Rise of Skywalker movie.
Possibly. We're getting into that. Star Wars spoilers down the way.
Yeah, well, we'll get into that.
But that's what I'm saying. You can put all the money and all the people behind it in the world, and if there isn't that love for what you're doing, then it's going to be bad.
So, and I do got to bring up the Rise of Skywalker because I think that passion wasn't there, and you could tell by watching it.
Exactly. And I think they were trying to make up for everything that went wrong with the previous film.
Yeah.
Because I felt like almost like half it was an apology film.
It was,
and I'm like, why do that? Just build up what's already there. Because it's not like J.J. Abrams is an incompetent filmmaker. He's not. He's made great stuff before, and he had a great cast and a great premise to start off of. And it felt like let's just negate that last movie and just try to put two movies into one right here.
So and I love The Last Jedi.
I actually liked it. I'm one of the people that did like it. But again, I can see why people didn't like it.
So, but I loved it. I don't care what anybody says. I loved it.
I wouldn't say love in my end, but
I think he had a perfect way of how he was going to wrap it all up. It was The Last Jedi, kind of get rid of all this Jedi stuff. Anybody can use the Force. So the Force could continue, but the Jedi is coming to an end. And I think that was a good way to do it.
Right.
But I don't think when J.J. Abrams took it over, he didn't know what to do with it. So he put a bunch of explosions, and it's a very loud and
JJ's great at explosions. He's great at at spectacle and things like that, which is awesome, which you need in a Star Wars movie. But that's not all you need in a Star Wars movie.
Yeah,
there was a whole bunch of
you need some substance, some subtlety,
exactly,
some nuance, and
let's not get it twisted. Star Wars has the worst fan base in the world. Like when it comes to people like being vocal about what they like and what they don't like, and kind of taking it over the edge.
Yeah.
So I don't think there's any way to make all the Star Wars fans happy.
There's no way. No, because Star Wars from the beginning is schizophrenic.
Right.
The original one, if you go watch The New Hope, it's kind of lighthearted, but has a little bit of mysticism. And then you go watch Empire is real dark and like moody. And then you go back to Return of the Jedi tries to be a little bit of both.
Right.
And then it has little bear things that overthrow the Empire.
Right.
With
like, we shouldn't have these miniature bears with us this entire time.
Yeah.
This was our mistake.
Yeah. So it was schizophrenic from the beginning.
Right.
But that leads me to something, because if you watch Star Wars, they didn't have any end. Do you know the end of the Lumberjack Nun?
So one of the reasons I worked on it so long is I built the entire thing from beginning to end. So I know how it starts, how it ends. There's also going to be I wrote what people call a codex. So I had this, binder at home that has like 300-400 pages of just what's going to be in the book. So every character, every race, every monster, because kind of the premise is, this Lumberjack Nun is a nun with an axe that fights monsters is the general premise. But it brings in monsters from, Latin American folklore, Japanese, Filipino.
So you take things from known folklore,
right,
from different cultures, bring it into a character, bring that character into life with certain powers or abilities, maybe?
Yeah, so then, it's going to be let's say you have La Llorona. So La Llorona actually plays a role in the comic.
Okay.
So then anybody who knows La Llorona is like, okay, I know what that is. So then it's going to be, part of the story is her dealing with that. So a lot of it is going to be just monsters from different cultures all end up in America here. And eventually down the book, you realize why they're all there, what they're doing there, and why she has to take on all these monsters. Because eventually it's going to be a fight for humanity to, stay alive and just wipe out monster kind. So that way it's going to be one or the other. It's either humans are going to survive or it's going to be monster world.
And she's kind of like the chosen one to kind of...
Not even the chosen one. She's just the only person that...
Reluctant?
Reluctant because she doesn't want to be the chosen one. She doesn't have superpowers. She wasn't ordained by God. She just happens to have the best weapon, which is an axe.
She just happens to have an axe.
Right. And you learn, as the book goes on, you learn why the axe is so important. You learn what's so important about her outfit. Everything here is something that I mapped out. It even gets into a civil war, like in vampires and things like that. So everything is there. Wow. And so when it's all said and done, it'll probably be about 100 issues, what I'm
About 100 issues?
Yeah, I can cut it down less than that just because it takes me so damn long because, I'm a single father. I have a full-time job. I have a podcast like you do, and then also my other, commitments. So the time I get to work on this is limited, so it takes a while for me to get each issue out, which is kind of why I wanted to have it all written and done before I started.
So when you're 80 and the final the final issue comes out.
So when I'm 80 next month, and the final issue comes out, it'll be done.
It'll be done. But you did what they didn't do in Star Wars. You have a beginning and an end.
Right.
You have a pathway to take this character. You've developed because in Star Wars, again, one of the faults was now they can heal people.
Right.
But
now, they couldn't do that before.
And they couldn't do that before.
Right.
But now you could heal. So then it's then why didn't Darth Vader just heal Padme, in the beginning?
Right.
And then we wouldn't have this
argument hey, maybe they didn't know how back then. Maybe that's new knowledge. But at the same time, it's not because some people just spontaneously did it.
Yeah, there was no rhyme or reason for it. Right. It just kind of shows up.
Yeah.
Like we can force heal.
Okay, that's great. So you didn't know how to force heal 100 years ago?
Exactly. So
and maybe they didn't. Maybe that's the thing.
But I'm saying even if they didn't, there was no I'm sure if in your comic if something shows up, you would have to give some context, some rhyme or reason.
A lot of it is exposition. So
it's in your codex why this person has this, right?
Right. Or why where this person came from, what role they're going to play later on. Why this person is going to be. So in the book, eventually...
So there's a rhyme and reason.
Exactly. So it's
that was missing from this new Star Wars. That's all I'm saying.
No, I totally agree. And that's the problem you get when, like I said, when it's not thought out. So one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted to have everything made and done and have the direction and what's going to happen in each chapter and everything's going to go on. So that way there was never be a time where I'm like, okay, what do I do next? What do I blah, blah. Because one of the things I like about British TV, for instance, is you have a British show, it lasts 2 seasons or 3 seasons, and then that's it. It's done.
It's done.
Because that's all they wrote for it. They wrote a idea, and this is what the idea is, and then, but you look at an American show, and then
I got to say, it's fantastic.
Right.
What the British do.
Dude, hell yeah. And then you end up loving it.
Luis is wasting
we got
his
a question from the side.
It's the same thing with anime in Japan.
Yeah, exactly.
There's literally thousands of animes released every year.
Right.
With 1 season or 8 episodes.
Yeah, and that's fine. So that's fine. That's
so if you couldn't hear Luis, he's talking about anime.
Right.
And
how said,
it's good.
It's a good point because he's saying in Japan, thousands of anime come out every year, and some of them just have 1 season, and that's fine because that's what the story was supposed to be.
My son's watching anime now, and I'm so proud of him. I'm trying
to get my son to anime. He's not feeling it right now, but
my son, he's 11. Malachi's 11 now, and finally he's starting to. And I'm like, so he comes up to me, Dad, check this out. Look at this, and I'm like, you're a nerd like your dad.
Right.
This is great.
Right, exactly.
Even Janet, my wife, said something like, look at he likes anime like you. I remember because when she first met me, she's like, who's this guy that's dressed all hip hop that likes this nerdy thing called anime?
Right. And the thing is, you were 30 years before the curve because that's everybody now.
It's everybody now.
Exactly.
But we were before the curve.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, of course.
But that's a great point because, like I said, pretty much everybody in America, it's okay to have a show that has 1 season and be successful. But heaven forbid you bring it to America, and now you have 37 seasons with 24 episodes in each one, and then you're like...
It kind of eats itself.
It does. You look at The Simpsons, great show. But not every season's a winner. Like you're on season 30 now. Like eventually, it's going to have to end.
Yeah. So like, I love The Office. I love the show Ricky Gervais did after that, Extras.
Yeah.
Had a couple seasons and just like stuff that just like has a beginning and has an end.
Right.
It fit the time. It fit the place.
Right.
And then be done with it. Move on to another idea.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I want to do. Like I have this idea and that's done. So that way I can just work on this. Whatever time I do get, I know exactly where I'm at, where the story's going, and what I have to do next. So that way there's no question or what do I do now?
So you got, this is 2 episodes here.
2 episodes.
Or 2 issues.
Issue 1, issue 2. Issue 3 is being completed right now.
But there's 3 comics here.
Right. So then what I'm doing is called Forgotten Tales, where I just have a bunch of ideas for like little short horror stories.
So this is a short, because I haven't even seen this one yet.
Yeah, so that one's just like 3 or 4 short horror stories that I just put in an issue.
And the artwork is amazing.
Thank you.
This is great stuff, man.
Thank you, man.
Seriously. And how painstaking is it to make it look the same here and there?
Well, that's one of the reasons. If you look at issue 1 of the book, it's totally different because I did all that analog. So I basically just, got some paper and drew it, Issue 2 was the first chance I had to do it digitally.
Yeah, so you're digitizing.
Digital makes it a ton easier. So you can just like, if you have like panels that have similar, backgrounds or anything, I can just duplicate those in panels. It's much quicker than me sitting there having to physically draw the same thing 8 or 9 times. You know what I'm saying?
So you got smarter along the way.
Well, I got money. Is what it was.
You got money.
So,
for the first time.
Well, yeah, for the first time I had a little extra money.
Oh, man.
So I bought my iPad and I do it on there. Now, eventually I want to upgrade to better equipment, but right now the iPad's all I could afford. So I'm limited by that.
Gotcha.
Which is still way better than what I had before.
So you got your iPad and that makes things a little bit easier.
Right.
Cool. And so these are short stories, horror stories?
Mostly, like some are funny. Like the first one's, the first part is called The Rookie, basically about a guy starting his first night at a graveyard as a nighttime security, and then he hears a scary noise, and that's kind of where that story goes.
Okay, yeah, don't tell me the rest. I gotta read it.
So then one is a funny story about a zombie b-boy. And then another one, I have a son. My son's name is Judah, and
my nephew.
His nephew, by the way. Yeah. So I make him his own children's books. So some like the one I put in there is Judah versus the Closet Monster. So it's a little children's book I made.
That's
for him,
so cool, man. That's in this one?
Yeah, it's in that one.
That's cool, dude.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Creepshow, was that like a little bit of inspiration for this?
For those who don't know, I'm a huge horror fan. So
and obviously I know because we share a Shudder account.
Okay, now they don't sponsor me, but you're going to. So Shudder, if those of you who like horror, get an app called Shudder.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's basically, for lack of a better term, Netflix for horror fans, but it's the best horror you can find out there. It's, the weird avant-garde stuff, the old classics, new independent stuff that you're not going to see anywhere else. It's only $5 a month too. So it's super cheap. If you watch it, you like horror movies, get it. We and him share the same Shudder account because I cannot wait to watch horror stuff.
It's I gotta watch it when like my family's not home.
Oh, same here. Because my kid gets scared of it or whatever, so it's basically me like at night with the same thing, volume down, ear up to the TV like I did with hip hop back in the day. And
exactly. And they got the new Creepshow, which I loved. I know if somebody comes in for like it's campy if you're looking, but it's like no, this is what I grew up on. Like this is right.
And campy's good sometimes.
And campy's good. No, I think it's good. I love it. I love that stuff.
One of the reasons I love the horror genre above other genres, not necessarily because I'm into like evil stuff or whatever.
It has nothing to do with that in one sense.
I think it's because it's the most, because you look at any budget for a movie, horror movies are always notoriously underfunded.
Low budget
all the time. Even the successful like big budget things are still by, movie standards a low budget film. So you have less money. So you have to find creative ways to be entertaining and to tell a great story, be compelling, all with less. And that's kind of like, if you listen to me, that's kind of the theme for my life. Like make what you can with less.
And so that theme
exactly
has carried on.
Like you can see, like there's a movie on there. Have you seen it yet called the Headhunter?
No.
So Headhunter is an American film. I think they made it for like $25,000, and it is amazing. But it's also like one of those movies you can check and see and like, okay, I can see how this costs a little because of the smart decisions they made. There's a zombie movie in there called The Battery, where 2 guys made this zombie movie. It's one of the greatest zombie movies ever made, and they made it for like $10,000.
Wow.
And you just sit there and think, okay, these 2 friends just had an idea, made a movie. It was great because they had the passion for it. You know what I'm saying? They studied, other zombie movies, other horror movies, and just other movies in general, and like found different creative ways to make that budget work. And that's what I respect about the genre, is that you don't need $100 million to make a good movie. You can have $10,000 and make it great. Or like, look at Blair Witch. You can have just like 2 cameras and like some people in the woods and make something great.
The first Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Which,
a classic that was made for like peanuts.
Peanuts, next to nothing. And that's what made it great. Because as soon as Toby got a budget.
Yeah, he made Poltergeist.
Yeah, so it's like, this is great.
Yeah.
So I got to give a shout out real quick. Tim Carpenter, he just came out with a movie called 1-800-Witches.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And it has that same type of feel. It's out in the festivals. And then he has another one coming out called Mr. Bleachers.
Ooh.
But that's a guy to look out for.
Yeah.
Is because he has that same kind of feel like that we grew up in the 80s. So shout out to Tim. I've befriended him on Facebook, and he's been really, really cool. And he supports the podcast and everything. So
hell yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so the horror genre was something else that spoke to you because it was like they did a lot with a little.
Right, exactly. And that's just kind of like the theme of my life. Like, you're not going to have a lot. Like, if you have an idea, the only thing holding you back from making that idea is you. A lot of times, like, and I'm guilty of this too, where people have like an excuse. Like, I didn't make this comic book for years because I had an excuse, like, oh, I don't have the right equipment, or I don't think my story's strong enough, or I want to do this or that. Eventually there's going to come a point where you're just making excuses. You're just not doing what you're supposed to be doing because you're afraid. And that's what it is. Like, I had to cop to the fact that I was afraid and basically being a bitch. Like, and that's on me. You know what I'm saying? Like, all the years I could have had this out, or all the, stuff that I could have done in the past is all on me because I was afraid. And that's what it boils down to. That's why I stopped using BDS The Fresh, because that was a shield I could hide behind. Like, BDS isn't feeling this, or this other persona isn't.
Exactly.
And so I'm like, no, when I'm Thomas Fernandez, then I'm me. So it's all on me. So it's either I'm being a bitch, or I'm going to accept it and just take my shot.
Which is a little bit hard because you really feel it, right? Because that shield is down, but you get all the reward as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, all the reward is yours. You don't got to share it with this fake persona that you really don't feel comfortable with anyway.
Right, exactly. That you, quite frankly, I outgrew. I wasn't that person anymore. Like, I made that persona when I was 18. And by the time I'm 30, I hope to God I'm not the same person I was when I was 18 that I am at 30. You know what I'm saying?
So 30, and then working on this, and then this comic book, and then you give a shout out. Let's talk about your podcast a little bit.
Oh, okay.
League of the Ordinary Gentlemen?
League of Ordinary Gentlemen is the Facebook site. The podcast itself is the Gents of the Round Table.
Gents of the Round Table, okay.
And as I mentioned before, I've always been a bit of a nerd. So this is kind of like me and 5 other of my homies. We get together every week and we just talk about our nerdy, passions for the week. So we talk about the movies we watched, the TV shows we watched, what comics we read, what books we read, what video games we played, and kind of just talk about it like in a round table kind of scenario.
Gotcha. So you get to be nerds.
Yeah, I basically get to nerd out with my homies every week and just like record it and just us being jackasses, which is fun.
It is fun because I've been looking forward for this podcast so I can nerd out about horror movies and Star Wars with you. I'm dead serious.
Exactly, yeah. And that's the same thing. Like, I get to talk so few, like that's every week, because I kind of handle the watching section of the podcast every week. And every week, that's all I talk about is just, horror movies, because I have no one else to talk to. So, So like nobody else is really into horror. Like me and Charles, I think were the 3 dudes I knew that were into horror, like the way that we're into horror, you know what I'm saying? And so like everyone's like, oh, I like, Friday the 13th was good. And I'm like, yeah, it was good, but have you seen,
yeah, exactly.
Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah. That's cool. So your podcast, and how can people listen to your podcast?
We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I think we're on Spotify. Pretty much anywhere you get podcasts. Just look up Gents of the Round Table. We put out 3 episodes a week, usually up on the weekends.
3 episodes a week?
Yeah. But basically what happens is we have one big, long, like, recording session, and then we just chop those up. So we'll have, the first section we'll talk about watching. Second section we'll talk about gaming. Then we'll talk about, or books and comics. So it ends up being like a 3-hour conversation. We just kind of edit down to 3 different episodes.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's a good conversation. You and some friends get to nerd out. You got your release. What do they think about the comic book?
They're so far they dug it. Like, and it's kind of one of those things that I learned back in the days. Like, don't just show your friends. Your friends are going to say they like it, or if they were super honest friends, they'll say that they don't like it, which is also great. So, I mean, they said they like it, so everybody I've showed so far said they like it, and, I love that response. Also think some of that may be just because they're my friends. They may be feeling like they're forced to say they like it, so I wanted to get it out to as many people as I can so I can get some negative feedback so I can kind of see what people aren't feeling,
Gotcha. So we're going to have Luis do a little critique on it, because he's not your friend and he doesn't like you.
Yeah. No, quite frankly, fuck Luis. Not playing. Just playing. He's a good guy. No, but no, that's what I want. Like, I would like people.
No, I'm
to read
serious.
It.
Like, I'll probably have him look at these and then come on the next episode and kind of give us a recap.
Yeah, man.
Is that cool?
Yeah, of course, man. I always like, I feel like it's false if people only hear the good stuff about what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? So like, if people read my comic, and I hope they like it, I'm making it so that people can enjoy it. I'm also making it because if nobody reads it, I'm still making it for me.
Because you have to.
Because I have to.
It burns inside of
exactly.
you.
Like, I don't have that much space in my belly to keep all of this in there,
Yes, exactly.
So if he reads it and he dislikes it, that's great. And I'm still going to like Luis, and we'll still be cool. And if he likes it and reads it and, digs what I do, then great too.
And that's cool. And I love this for this podcast that you were able to express that, and I hope artists listening could hear what you're trying to say. Like, even if they first write it bad.
Yeah.
Write it badly.
I'll give you an example. So when we first, the first CD we ever put out was me and my homie Scott Tension. We did an Earthborn CD called Underdogs. And there was, at the time when we lived in Phoenix, there was a publication that did nothing but underground music reviews. I was really well respected in Phoenix. So we sent them our album and we're like, man, it's going to be great. They're going to review it. And they killed us. Like, it was the worst review. They actually, got personal and, about how much they hated the album. God. And so I was like, man, like, that really, kicked me in the nuts for, a good month. And I was like, you know what? Fine. They didn't like it.
Wow.
They didn't like it. So then when we put out our second album, we sent it there again, and it was a totally different story. Like, they loved it, and then we
got Lechuga Funk.
Yeah,
right?
Lechuga Funk. Right. Yeah. So then they put it that we had a few other independent magazines review it and praise it for how outside the box it was. But that wouldn't have happened if we didn't get that first really bad review.
Yeah, if you follow this podcast for any length of time, if you're on Facebook, the story that really resonated with me was Prince. His first big show.
Oh, yeah. For the Stones?
For the Rolling Stones, got booed off a stage.
Yeah.
Not just booed off a stage, they threw bottles at him.
Right.
They threw bottles at him, booed him off a stage. Then he went and he took off 15, 20 minutes in. A couple weeks later, Mick Jagger calls him let's do it. Come on, we got to do this.
Right.
Let's finish this tour. Goes back up a second time, gets booed off a stage, and bottles thrown at him.
Yeah.
His big break, and that happens. And then he just goes home and says, I'm never opening up for anybody else again.
Right. And
that
if you think about
badass.
That is badass. And it makes total sense because the people that dig on the Stones aren't Prince fans.
No.
At that time. Now they probably are. But at the same time, you had two completely different genres of music. And two juggernaut personalities. You have Mick Jagger and Prince trying to share a stage. That's not going to happen. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but he could have done what most people do and kind of internalize that. Oh, maybe it's not meant to be.
Right. Maybe something wrong with me. Blah,
what's
blah,
wrong?
Blah.
Right. Exactly. What's wrong with me? But he didn't do that. He believed in himself. He rose up. He became that Prince.
Right.
And said, "No, I'm never opening up for anybody else again." And he didn't. And he became one of the most prolific artists of our century.
Exactly.
Or last century. Or any this guy is so talented. Wrote so many songs that people had no idea that Prince wrote that song.
Right.
And could have been nothing.
Yeah.
Because
he could have just been Prince the bus driver if he'd have given up.
If he would have given up and listened to the crowd.
Exactly. And that, not to say that everybody's going to be Prince, the multi-million-dollar selling artist that, lives in a mansion.
I'm going to be Prince.
Well, you can be Prince. Okay. I don't have those expectations of myself because I don't think that's necessarily realistic for most artists. If there was that much money to go around, everybody be living in a mansion, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to happen. You're an artist. You're doing your creative thing. It's more than likely you're not going to be super financially successful at it. But that's finances. That's, obviously it's important. It's great, but it's not the end all be all. For me, if I can make this art and I can just make my comics and make my podcast and make music I want to make, then that's it. That's all I can ask for.
Makes you happy.
It makes me happy. That makes me a better father. It makes me a better partner if I'm with somebody. It makes me a better friend, to people because I'm happy in myself. I'm happy with what I'm doing. It makes me a better person. And if anything, depending on what your religious aspects are, it's of God. You know what I'm saying?
God is a creator, right?
Exactly.
He created us and we're made in his image.
Exactly.
So we create because he's a creator.
Exactly.
So we're just continuing this cycle of creating.
Exactly. And if anything, that's what we're meant to do here. Not all of us are going to be artists and painters and writers or whatever. Some of us are going to be taxmen, and that's great. Be the best taxman you can. If you're doing it to the best of your ability, you're making art.
And that's still creative.
Exactly.
The word inspiration comes from inspirited.
Right.
So it means to be filled with God.
Yeah.
That's what inspiration means.
Exactly.
So it's like,
and there's not a person out there that creates art that didn't have inspiration of some sort. Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's like, that's when I feel closer to the God, universe, or whatever is when I'm
whatever
creating.
You're calling it. Right.
So like, even with this podcast again, like, it takes a lot of work. People have no idea how much work this podcast takes. But if I don't
behind the scenes, right,
I'm not happy.
Right, exactly.
If I don't do it, like there's something dying inside of me. So it's like, okay, I got to set up and I'm going to tear down and I'm going to put all this together. I'm a book guest because I have to do it.
Right, exactly. And you don't know why you have to do it. Just something inside of you telling you have to do it.
Just I have to do it.
Right.
So thank you for coming on. We're wrapping up at the end here. Okay. I appreciate the inspiration that I got from you today.
Hey, you inspire me, brother.
This has been great. I hope you inspire a lot of artists. That kid that picks it up has a bad idea about a nun with an axe. Right. And then says, I want to draw badly.
Yeah.
Draw
idea. Badly for a long time.
Rap badly.
Yeah.
Do whatever you got to do.
Make horrible paintings.
Make horrible paintings.
You're a sculptor. Sculpt really weird shit that nobody likes. And do it for a while.
And just do it for a while.
Yeah.
Until you start to come up with that rhythm.
Yeah.
And then you build like, why does this nun have an axe?
Yeah.
Why does this happen? Why? And ask those questions and follow that thread.
Exactly.
And keep going.
Because it's in you. It's in all of us. We all are innately creative people. Human beings just are. Like you can't, live in a cave and learn how to make tools if you're not creative people.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So whatever that is, like it may not be comic book, it may not be music, it may not be movies or whatever you're into. Like, listen to yourself. Have some quiet time. Put the phone down. Just listen to what the universe is telling you and do it.
Quiet time is huge.
Yeah.
And that's really probably one of the gifts that you said you had, that you were okay being by yourself.
Yeah, it was. Because
being alone. That was a gift.
It was to my detriment in a lot of ways, because I'm just like naturally a lonely person, if that makes any sense. Like, and it's hard for like relationships and things like that when you don't need other people. But at the same time, it's okay because I know that I'm okay by myself, if that makes any sense. So I don't put my happiness in another person.
I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's great, and I think it's a sign of strength.
I hope so.
And one thing before we wrap up, we talked, Luis's dad came in here and mentioned maybe script writing.
Right.
Any thoughts to script writing?
Well, if anything, writing a comic is writing a script. So whenever it's a visual art. So you're sitting here, you're thinking of the story. So you write the story, but then you have to think of a way to make it visually appealing to people. So when you write a script, like, all right, page 4, panel 1, such and such scene, this person says this. And if you look at the script, it's kind of similar. Mm-hmm. So that would actually be my next creative endeavor. So the way I look at it, I made the art I wanted to make. I made the comic book I want to make. I made the music I want to make. The only other thing I really love is movies. So eventually I want to make the movie that I want to make.
So are we where yet? You're where is making a movie.
Making a movie. Once I'm done with this comic, or possibly while I'm making this comic, I'm going to make a movie.
That's beautiful.
That's going to be, once I'm done and my son is a man, then I can leave.
Luis is an actor.
There you go.
Luis can do it.
There you go.
He could be your leading man.
It'll be a 1-person movie.
No, I want to be in it.
Okay, a 2-person movie.
Well, okay, let's get on the script.
I'm down. All I just have to do is, learn how to make a movie while I'm making it now.
Exactly. I just got a camera today.
There you go. That's all we need.
It's done.
Yeah.
It's a camera from like the 90s, but hey, let's do it.
Let's do it. We'll make an entirely VHS-based film.
This is great, man. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you for having me, brother, man. I love you, dude. I'm glad I got to do this with you.
I love you too, man. Right? This is it's been beautiful. I hope really like this inspires people. Like,
I hope so too. And if it doesn't, and you think I'm a fool, fine. That's great. Find out what inspires you then. Go out there and do what you're meant to do.
I've got to push this to you. When is this going to be available online?
Well, I just bought a domain. So right now I'm learning how to build websites. So like everything else in my life, I'm just going to do it and hopefully it turns out okay. So as soon as it's complete and I figure out what the hell I'm doing, then it should be available online. There's a good chance that the remainder of the books may just come out digitally online, just because that would be, since I'm financing everything myself, it's cheaper to do that than it would be to print out physical copies and mail them everywhere. So that may be a thing. It may just be a limited run when it comes to physical copies and just maybe have majority done online. So I'm still trying to figure that out.
I got to start you a GoFundMe campaign or something.
I just need to win the lottery, man. Yeah. Just be creative full time.
Yeah, we got to get this 100 issues out of your brain.
The hundo,
yeah, into real life. Well, anyway, appreciate you. Thank you guys for listening. Shout out to Made West right here. Check him out. _Made West _
Yep.
Yeah, that's how it is. And then, like I said, the links will be in the liner notes below. Thank you. Luis is over here. He always helps out. 310 Media.
Big up to Luis.
Yeah, they do a great job. And thank you guys for listening, and God bless.